Okay, I'd like to call to order the Board of Selectmen's meeting of Tuesday, August 20th at 7 PM. Can we all stand for the pledge, please? Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America
and
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we actually have three things under chairman's announcements tonight. The first one's going to be an announcement for the Smithsonian Museum on Main Street traveling exhibit. Lisa and Shirley, or Lisa, could you come up and join us just to explain a little bit about this?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I'm Lisa Melzinski. I'm a member of the board of the Douglas Historical Society. And a little bit ago, we applied for this program that is only available to towns in the Commonwealth of under 12,000 people. We were one of 6 selected to host the Smithsonian exhibit on democracy called Voices and Votes. It's a traveling Smithsonian exhibit, and it will be here from September 13th to October 25th next year, 2025. And so this particular exhibit highlights the history of democracy and how voting happened both in rural areas and throughout the cities and towns of the country previously as well as into the present day. Part of the program also asks us to come up with 6 programs, including a community conversation that looks at these topics and expands on them and includes as many of our citizens as possible. So some of the suggestions we made that will still be worked out as we progress are things like having our senators or our reps come in for a conversation, and maybe setting up, in conjunction with cable studio, set up a little booth where people can share their experience of the first time they voted, or tell the story of how they gained citizenship, and that was the first time they voted. So we also have people who are historic interpreters that we've worked with in the past who are very excited to come join us and present a program that talks about suffragists or the Revolutionary War and how that played into developing voting as the country grew. And so that would also dovetail nicely into celebrating the country's 250th anniversary that's coming up right after that.
Can you briefly, how did this all come about? Who applied for this?
So the board of the Douglas Historical Society voted to authorize me to apply for it, and so I filled out the information, and it was basically, they asked for a letter of intent, which is their way of lessening the burden of a full-blown grant application on folks. And so we made the cut, and then we'll be working on budgets and things like that as the program progresses.
Nice. Anybody have a?
Would it be held at the Jenks store?
So we looked at the Jenks store and the size of the space that they needed to hold the exhibit, and we determined that it was too small, didn't have the square footage. So we looked at the next logical place would be where everybody in town votes. And we will be using the gym, but we will be putting up like a screen or curtain or whatever just to make it more intimate, because it is in fact too big a space. But it'll be a great place to store the material and maybe also have another program or two there.
And will the discussions be about Douglas and democracy, or speaking of the country as a whole, or any idea how that?
No, it would mostly be Douglas or maybe as
Massachusetts?
the Blackstone Valley.
Yeah.
Because the point of the program is to bring this Smithsonian Museum to Main Street America and small towns. And lots of people may have never ever been to the Smithsonian or vaguely remember a high school trip, right? And so this is an exhibit that the museum has put together, and they'll train us on how to unpack it, and they'll train us on how to be docents for it and things like that.
A generic exhibit that's going to go all over, which is basically the same. They're on.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, the exhibit will be the same in all 6 communities. I think it's probably in other parts of the country as well, but the program only comes to Massachusetts every 3 or 4 years with different topics.
How many towns applied?
I don't know. I was going to ask that question at our first
Congratulations for getting it to town.
Thank you.
Yeah, 66 towns.
That's cool.
I think we had the support of the Senator Fatman and Rep. McKenna, and I'm sure we'll see them at some point, but this is a very big privilege for the town to be able to host this, so we appreciate your support, and we look forward to asking volunteers to come in and to help talk to people, to host this, and to expand it as much as possible to put Douglas on the map, so to speak.
Very good.
Lisa,
Yes.
I don't know if you mentioned, but they also are providing us with $10,000 to do this.
The president of the Douglas Historical Society in back of me, Shirley Mosinski, reminded me that there's a $10,000 grant that comes with this in order to be able to host the programs, which are free of charge, and to cover expenses. But the Historical Society is also has also agreed to match that with both in-kind and time from volunteers, as well as some funds. So we are well-funded, well-covered for this, and we're really looking forward to having people come in and learn about how we became the country that we are.
Yeah, somehow or another, Douglas has become very popular with all these programs recently.
Yeah.
It could be worthwhile to share it with the school, so the school can bring kind of like some tours and stuff like that of the younger grades.
Oh, we're on that,
No, that's excellent. No.
because what we'd really like to do is cultivate a few students to be interns, so that they can get the whole experience of what it's like to bring a program together and to present a program, as well as we're fortunate that we got the window of September 13 through October 25, because the kids are in school.
That's excellent.
This is perfect field trip for them and don't have to go far.
Excellent.
But if you have any other ideas, we're open to suggestions. It's still a work in progress, so as far as the programs go, and happy to keep you appraised.
Well, an ice cream machine may get me in hell to come.
Yeah,
Ice cream.
the democracy.
Well, yeah, just an idea, just throwing
Is it
out
one cone, one vote?
Yeah,
Whoa. That's up, we haven't come to that conclusion yet. We'll meet on that, but.
Before this century wasn't available to the average person, so we want to show the democratization and
Right.
offering.
If you vote, you get a cone.
Right.
Go fill your ice cream?
There we go.
Is it that red, white, and blue flavor now?
Yes. Good call. Excellent.
Okay, Lisa, thank you for your efforts. I appreciate all the work you put into it.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
The next thing under chairman announcements is the acknowledgements of the Pauley's Push. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that. I would think they would be at this point, but Pauley's Push on Sunday, August 18th, Pauley departed Boston on a 210-mile journey through Massachusetts, Connecticut, and New York, with plans to arrive at Ground Zero in Manhattan on September 11th. When he completes his journey, the airline beverage cart he pushes in honor of the first responders of 9/11, his fellow flight crew members will have traveled 750 miles in honor of all 4 flights. As most people are aware, Pauley was a flight attendant who regularly worked United Flight 175, and he pushed to Ground Zero in 2021 in honor of the crew members that he and all of the others. In 22, he pushed a cart to Washington Dulles from Washington Dulles Airport to the Pentagon for American 77, and in 23 from Newark Liberty to Shanksville for United 93. He, right now, as of this evening, he ended today at the New England Steakhouse. He travels about 10 or 11 miles per day, so it's anticipated he may be here by the end of tomorrow or first thing on Thursday morning, just so everybody's aware of it. Cheer him on, give him some support of some sort would probably be a good thing to do. The other thing that, the final thing under the chairman announcements that I'm going to have is, most people will recall back last fall, through a discussion with the town administrator, the idea of approaching the BBT with an EMT course progressed to the point where it's actually properly formalized. Classes are going to take place once a week on Tuesdays from 5:30 to 9 p.m. starting on September 3rd. It's a 15-week program. The tuition is $1,200. If, Lisa, if you could actually post that on our town website and send it to the police and the fire department to see if they could post it on their Facebook pages and to get it out there. It's a good program that may benefit their members as well as the community.
That's pretty cool.
Yep. I did talk to the superintendent of Blackstone Valley. The first thing what I actually approached them about was a paramedic program, because we're challenged with trying to get paramedics last year, everybody in the Blackstone Valley. So that's still on the table. They're still pursuing that. It's just a more challenging process for them to go through, so they're starting off with this EMT program. So with that, is anybody in the audience under Citizens Forum that has anything they would like to discuss or present? Seeing as none, the first thing on our, after that, on our agenda is the road use 2024 Mid-State Massive Ultra Trail Race and possible votes.
Good evening. This is Rich Mazzola. I'm the director of the Mid-State Massive Ultra Trail. Just here online if there's any questions. This will be our 6th year running the event. It's primarily run on the Mid-State Trail, but we do cross a few of the public roads as we enter Douglas State Park, and we finish at Wallen Lake, right by the water. Really no changes from last year to this year. Actually, no changes from maybe year 1 to this year. We've actually had the exact same, pretty much the same route following the Mid-State Trail into the park. With any luck, we'll get maybe about 250 runners total to finish the race, and that's throughout the entire day, because runners start 100 miles away in Ashburnham, and it takes a very long time, as you can imagine, to run 100 miles. And they're spread out. They don't start in a big pack. They start out slowest to fastest. So this will be like a steady trickle of runners, running into the park over the course of the day on Sunday, October 13th.
Thank you, Rich. In that memo, you can see that the police department has no concerns at this time. Fire department also has no issues, and highway department has no concerns. We have our insurance certificates and everything else in our packet. Does anybody have any questions for Rich?
Nope.
Seeing as none, I would entertain a motion
So moved.
to approve the road use for the 2024 Mid-State Massive Ultra Trail Race. A motion's been made by Hal.
Second.
Seconded by Ross. Any further discussion? Seeing as none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, fellas.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
Next thing on our agenda is the Whitensville Fishing Game Club Annual Field Day, a one-day alcohol license, and a one-day entertainment license. If nobody's objecting to it, we can combine the two together in one motion. You guys want to come up in case there's any questions on this?
I'm good with combining.
Excuse me?
I'm good if you combine.
How you guys doing?
Good evening. Anything different, or is this your?
Same thing,
typical-
except we're asking for a rain date, so in case something happens, we don't have to play the runaround after the fact, like we did last year, just in case.
Yeah, smart move. We do get rain.
Yeah, was that part of your?
We've learned our lesson in
Was
September,
that part of your application? And
Yes.
you gave them another date? Yeah,
14th, and I
okay.
believe the 21st, if I think. Yeah.
Anybody have any questions for these two guys? Seeing as none, I'd entertain a motion. You want to do that?
The motion to approve the one-day alcohol license and entertainment license for the Whitensville Fishing Game,
Annual field day.
annual fun day.
Yeah.
I'll second it.
Motion's made and seconded twice. Any further discussion?
Twice as good.
Yeah, twice is good.
mean
Any
we
further
got two of them?
discussion?
Got ice cream? No. Actually, we do.
Yeah.
Between 1 and 3, your ice cream truck will be
Okay, let me
there.
get back to this. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, guys.
That was easy. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Yep, have a
Good
good
weather.
night.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Next thing up is the door-to-door, no solicitation salesperson application fee. Chief, could you come up, please?
Evening, gentlemen,
Good evening.
lady.
So you came up with a permit fee for this?
Well, as suggested permit fee, as you know, the bylaw had passed, and we got it back from the Attorney General's office. I put together an application, but it's incumbent upon your board to apply an application fee if you so choose per the bylaw. In the original application that I submitted, there was a $35 suggested application fee, and frankly, I did some digging around, and the towns that touch us, Bellingham had a $35 application fee. The other towns surrounding us, they either have a hawkers, peddlers, and solicitors bylaw, nothing really specific to ours other than what Bellingham has. And looking at the formula that Matt supplied me, where he suggested you usually take, when you're setting an application fee, you take the salary of the person who is going to do it, and you figure out, you add their benefits in there, what it's going to be about an hour. So this process is going to be done by my administrative assistant and myself. So she'll gather all the background paperwork for me, she'll process the application, then it'll come to me. I'll do fingerprints, have an interview with the person. So taking that formula in mind, I would say anything between whatever you're comfortable with, but $25 to $35 within that range would cover the time. I mean, it's fairly quick. I don't see a lot of it taking more than an hour and a half, depending on how many people each,
Yep.
the company might have. Right now, I have one application that is pending since it went into effect, and that's, by a solar company, and we're in the process of doing that.
So would that be a company or per person?
It's per person. Per person.
Question?
I just noticed that like your violation thing, fine is like $100. So, just following the lines of, when we do permits in town, usually the permit fee was $50 and you didn't get your permit fee, it would be twice the permit fee.
That $100 fee was per the bylaw that we presented, correct?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, it's in the original bylaw.
No, just,
Okay with the-
yep.
Yeah, it's in the original bylaw.
Yeah.
The only thing that wasn't put into it was the application fee,
Yep.
which gives you guys the authority, your board, the authority to,
And I think it's.
Assign the application fee.
It's reasonable because it's going to take time to process all this.
How about a charity, a nonprofit soliciting, that's not covered?
that they're not subject to the application process.
Yeah, they're exempt from the
They're
bylaw
exempt.
because
It's in the
that
bylaw.
specifically
Is it in the
came up
bylaw?
because of the Boy Scouts and
Yeah.
things like
Right.
that. That's,
Boy Scout, Girl Scouts,
Yeah.
politicians.
yeah.
It's
yeah.
only for-profit companies that come in.
Any concerns if it was a $50 application fee?
I have, whatever you are comfortable with, your board's comfortable with, like I said, I mean, time-wise, it's probably, it's like anything else.
Yeah.
It's going to be case by case, but on by the time I get it, somebody will submit the application, my administrative assistant will put all the paperwork together, she'll give me the packet, I'll schedule fingerprints. You know, the whole process could take up to, you know, an hour, hour and a half, some maybe 3 hours, depending on how much you have to dig or whatever you have, but whatever your board is comfortable with.
Yeah, just my opinion on that, and everybody's open to their own, obviously, is the $35 seems to be reasonable, and the only thing that I think of is if you have somebody that comes in with 4 employees in town, so now you're starting to negatively impact. The goal wasn't to drive people away from coming to solicit in town, but to control it so that they're not just randomly walking around and he's getting 400 calls a day, as in all these different people and different, so.
On the other hand, if they're going to have 4 people, they're going to think there's enough profit in having
Correct.
multiple people going out.
Right.
And I was just trying to be consistent with how we do other policies related to permits and things like that, where it's the violation on is twice the permit cost, and that's the only reason.
Yeah, you know, no, I understand the rationale with that, but I'm also listening to the chief's comments about surrounding towns that are using relatively.
Yeah, they did, and they literally ranged from, and of course, they've had them for a while, and like I said, they're under different sections of their bylaws, hawkers, peddlers, and solicitation, so it's not specific solicitation. But if you review a lot of other towns' bylaws, if they haven't gone through it and updated their fees yet, they're either way ahead of us or way behind us. They either just recently did them, or they haven't done them in a long time, and they're fairly lower than what they
basically.
probably should be.
Yeah, so if they pay a $35 fee and, or they don't, and they get caught, they're gonna pay a triple fee, right?
Yeah.
So if it's double or close to,
And you said you've got a formula to come up with the fee amount? Is that how you do it? Or you-
Yeah, but basically, I mean, based on what Matt had given me, the information that he had given me, using that formula, it would be, like I said, right around $25 to $35,
Yeah.
depending on how much time it took us.
yeah, I'm just gonna check with the administrator, see if he has any, you have any input on this, Matt?
Assuming I've unmuted myself successfully.
You have.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I agree with the chief's approach to this. So there are court cases to the effect that we charge fees in accordance with what it costs us to run the operation that is implementing the regulation. We don't always adhere, we're not always able to adhere to that very, very strictly, but in this case, we probably can. So, you know, I'm all in favor of trying to keep it kind of low in the range that the chief specified, because that really is the only thing we can justify based on our cost of implementation. Now, with experience, it may prove to be more difficult to implement than we thought, or we may run up costs trying to enforce this against people who don't comply completely. And we may take another look at it. You can reset the fee at any time you want to, but this was a bylaw, as you all recall, that was really put forward by concerned citizens across the town, and we're anxious to implement it and give them the protections that they voted for when they voted for this to pass town meeting.
Does this money go into the general fund?
Yeah, well, I would turn it over to Gene, but I say it goes into the general fund, it doesn't come back to the police department or any specific
Yeah,
department.
just-
Any money we take in goes into the general fund, it goes to Gene. But just on another note, I mean, like the town administrator said, this is not really to generate revenue. This was because of numerous complaints that we've had from citizens, you know, regarding the solicitors. And the good thing about it is the bylaw is very well written. It's not something that we're, you know, our thing is if the bylaw is violated after they're issued a permit, it's going to be a conversation and a re-education. But the good thing is that the bylaw calls for at any point in time, you know, if there's violations, their permit can be revoked. So we're not looking to generate funds, we're just looking to resolve the issue that we had that was brought to us. So,
Just listening to the administrator and the chief, actually rethinking my thoughts a little bit, I'd be more inclined to go for $25 because we can always revisit it if it becomes an issue or a burden on your department. Do you agree with that approach, Mr. Administrator?
Sure, I mean, I'm with the chief on this, this is your call.
Yeah.
We're not trying to hit any sort of financial target here, we're just trying to defray the cost of processing
Yep.
application.
Yeah, and
And my goal is to make them compliant,
I
that's
think
all.
it's a fair price. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
fair application fee. Like I said, by checking around $25 to $35 with what, we're paying our employee salary and the time it's going to take to do it, it's fair.
And I'll agree with whatever you guys want to do. And just as a suggestion, as a starting point, maybe $25 would be a fair approach to businesses. No, we're not trying to hurt anybody, we're just trying to eliminate some of the frustrations we've had in the past.
Just need to cover some expense.
Yeah, I think I'm good with
Yeah, so
25.
25.
if somebody wants to make a motion and second it, we'll be in good shape.
I'll make the motion to approve the $25 door-to-door non-solicitation salesman application fee for $25
Per person.
per person.
Second.
Second. Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing as none, all in favor? Aye.
Perfect.
Thanks, chief.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Ma'am?
Thank you for
That was our last piece that we needed to actually put this in place?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's in place. Like I said, I have had
Yep.
one application that's just pending, and take care of that, and I'll keep the stats on it, and I'll let you guys know as they
Perfect.
come in.
Thanks for your help.
Appreciate that.
All right, the next thing we have on is, and Matt, we're going to get to you quick. I'm trying. ZBA appointments, Margaret Bacon to a full member, and Jim Palmer going from alternate to a full member. There is a memo in our packet on Wednesday, August 7th, Zoning Board of Appeals voted Jim Palmer alternate to full member and Margaret Bacon to full member.
I'll make the motion to appoint,
Yep, okay. Anybody have, before you do that, anybody have any comments or concerns? No? Go ahead.
I think,
Yep, just make it
I
show.
just- yeah,
Yep.
I'll make the motion to approve Jim Palmer to a full member and Margaret Bacon to a full member on the ZBA board.
Yeah, appointing, yep,
Appointing.
okay.
I'll second that.
Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing as none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You're going to notify Margaret so she gets sworn in. Question, does Jim Palmer going from an alternate to a full member, does he have to get re-sworn in or is it just changed?
No,
Yes. Yep.
I will usually
I don't
just
think
do
it
it
does,
on
but I'm just asking the question, that's all.
Yep.
All right, thank you. Review and sign state election warrant. There's a lot here to read, but we should be able to get through it pretty quick. If everybody's happy with that, I'm looking for a motion to approve it, and we can sign it.
Move we approve the state election warrant as presented to the board.
I'll second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing as none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we'll sign that in the office later?
Yes.
Yep. I'm getting closer there, Matt. So, grant acceptance for the IT department cyber security grant in the amount of $11,250. It's a federal grant, actually. Somebody want to make a motion?
Sure. I'll make a motion, we accept the grant for the IT department, cybersecurity, in the amount of $11,250.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing as none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The next thing we have is the MS4 Stakeholders Committee discussion. Matt, could you come up, please? So on this particular thing, time is of the essence. We have to move this thing along. We have a couple members already figured out, which would be Adam Ferno and Les Stevens has volunteered himself to be on that. Thank you. But we needed somebody from Concom, FinCom, Planning Board, and 2 more citizens at large. If you could reach out to those departments and see if you can get some volunteers, those boards and committees, to get some volunteers for that. The goal of this is to have this subcommittee that we voted on July 2nd, 2024, to form a subcommittee for this. The subcommittee's work needs to be completed by January, so we can get forwarded to all the related boards and committees to be ready for the annual town meeting next spring. So we need to come up with volunteers quickly, and we need to move through it. Mr. Administrator, you have anything you would like to add to that?
Yeah, I'm just going to flesh it out just a little bit. The MS4 permit has traditionally been managed by the Community Development Department within Town Hall, and many steps have been taken to assure our compliance with the permit, and this is probably going to be the last checkbox that we have to check in order to maintain our compliance and not enter into any sort of adversarial conversation with federal and state environmental regulators. I have done it before, I'll do it again, just because emphasis is sometimes secured by repetition. The MS4 permit is actually a permit. That piece of paper and the associated regulations allow the town of Douglas to take our stormwater within different watersheds in town, but specifically most implicated is the Mumford River watershed, and take our street stormwater and other stormwater management facilities and dump that water into the river. And I can't help but say that that is an extremely valuable privilege that the town of Douglas has. And in other jurisdictions with more strict regulations, all of that stormwater would have to be managed in a different way. You would either have to be held back and treated, or infiltrated or managed in some way to stay on properties, and the town wouldn't be able to simply send it into the river. So what we have to do is come up with a bylaw that gives the environmental regulators above our heads at the federal and state level reasonable assurance that the water we're putting into the river will not contaminate that river in any way that they find unacceptable. So we had a template that was proposed or drafted in large part by our MS4 consultant. And as it made its way through the legislative process, it was perhaps overly broadly drawn for some folks in the town. And we got hung up in the legislative process. And we're hitting the restart button to do a much more grassroots directed effort, since there are so many passionate voices raised on it. And what we've created here is a process where there will be many, many opportunities for the public to engage if they are interested in this issue. So there'll be a stormwater advisory committee. They can attend the meetings and air their views. The advisory committee will work on the bylaw with the help of the community development director and other staff that he feels he needs to bring into the effort. And then before it even gets on the warrant, it will need to be vetted by the planning board and the conservation commission. So there are 2 additional forms, and as you recall, the finance committee reviews everything that goes on the warrant. If it has any kind of financial impact on the community, And this certainly does. It's not a direct budget impact, but it is a financial impact on the community. So you really have many, many way stations at which you can bring your opinion to bear. So, Matt's been working pretty hard on this. He's been interacting with some officials. I don't want to speak for him. I think he should summarize, though, the interaction he's had with federal and state officials recently that lend a sense of urgency to getting this done.
Thank you.
Sure.
You want to add to that, Matt?
Sure. So Matthew Benoit, Director of Community Development. We had a Zoom call conference with the EPA recently. The federal officials kind of gave us they were getting ready to give us a mandate in which we had to get this done. So this bylaw that we're producing is a mandate of the MS4 permit, and we are long since past the original date in which this was supposed to be implemented. So they're getting ready to kind of slap us with a deadline to get this done, or also susceptible to some serious fines at the state level, at the federal level, excuse me. So we were able to tell them what we're working on, and that they reviewed our draft bylaw, they gave us some feedback on it. We've implemented that into the draft, and we told them that we have a committee that's designed to review this and hopefully on for Springtown meeting. So they kind of stretched out our deadline a little bit to that time so we can get this on for that warrant. Yeah, the federal officials, and they had a federal attorney on there, and they were actually pleased with the progress that we've made. Usually they have these calls with towns and they're not even prepared, but they were happy to see that we've done a lot of this work to this point. So they were able to stretch out our deadline a little bit. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Anybody have any questions?
Actually, town admin, Matt, you mentioned that it's favorable to the town, probably in the financial sense that we don't have to make a capital investment to achieve what's being desired. Is that because anything we do would be considered less sensitive than in some other areas? Why are we getting the more favorable approach?
From the feds?
Yeah.
Well, because we've demonstrated that we're trying to make progress towards building community consensus around something that town meeting might be able to support. So we haven't shrugged our shoulders or turned our gaze away from the federal spotlight here. The way the federal government works here, this is, MS4 permits are part of this entire initiative that started in the 70s with the Clean Water Act and was renewed several times with Clean Water Act amendments by the Congress, and almost every 20 years or so, the legislation is revisited. And the way that the government works, they're not anxious to fine us, and they're not anxious to have a long drawn-out battle with us in any sort of court setting. They have the authority to revoke our permit and force us to do certain things under what is called a consent decree, where we more or less agree to whatever they mandate. So, if you're in favor of local self-government and local control over these issues, you're best to write your own bylaw that your citizens will feel comfortable with than having the feds come in with their 50,000-foot view of what everybody should do. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts has entered into this agreement with the feds about how this is going to be enforced, and they basically put the entire state into the program. But I think one thing that's very important that we learned in that phone call with those officials is they are looking for our bylaw to apply to areas that they have specifically designated as densely populated and requiring stormwater management. So we don't have to cover the more rural sections of town where people have larger lots, and we're somewhat concerned that their rights to take firewood and other things would be abrogated. That's not necessary, and so we can rewrite the bylaw to fit Douglas's needs. And as I said before, a local initiative is much more likely to generate consensus than having the feds bark down your throat what they want you to do.
Anything else, Al?
So it's just, our procedure looks good, that we're going ahead and addressing this issue rather than something having to do with the environmental situation in Douglas. So we're acting on this, which is what they want to do, as more of a home rule matter. Is that safe to say that?
Well, that's how I'm framing it
Yeah.
for you, so that everybody can see what's at stake here. You don't get fined unless you do the whole opossum approach to
Yeah.
public service. Stick your head in the sand, don't respond to phone calls, ignore letters, ignore your consent decree, do what you want. Once they get their hackles up, they will levy a fine, but it's not common, and we certainly don't want to go there.
Good.
Anybody else have anything? So we probably, any need to vote on the 2 appointments that we have already, or just wait until we have the whole thing and do it all at once?
That's all a matter of your philosophy. To the extent that people have said they want to be on, there's no harm done in appointing them,
Okay.
because then we've got that much of a start.
You
Give them a
can
chance
vote
to
for yourself, but don't make
Think
the motion.
about the process too, if they're
Yep,
ready to go.
yep. So why don't we entertain a motion to appoint, Les has already volunteered before. Actually, we appointed him on 7/2/24, so we don't have to do him. Adam Furno, let's make a motion to appoint Adam under Citizens at Large.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? Being as none, all in favor? Aye. Adam, you cannot get away now. So, Matt, you got roughly 5 months to have this completed. So if you could just keep Lisa and Matt up to date as to how you're progressing on getting members on here, because time is going to go by very quickly on us.
Sure.
And time is of the essence from what I'm getting out of this conversation, so.
Absolutely.
If you could
Right.
reach out to all your chairmen or have Jen send it around to all your boards and committees and
Will.
see if we can get some interest in there, would be greatly appreciated.
Will do.
Anybody else have anything for Matt?
I have a question.
Yep, you can have it.
Has the board voted to accept the charge to the stakeholders committee, the draft document that was sent out July 10th? I don't know if the board has accepted that as the document that I would circulate to the potential residents.
I don't think we did.
But we can-
No, we didn't. No, we didn't. So give me 2 seconds to look at it. Sure. And everybody else take a fast peek at it. Yeah. Matt, you reviewed this
He drafted-
charge for the stakeholders committee?
Yeah, I wrote it.
yeah, he
Okay.
drafted it.
Yeah,
So it is-
I should have read the heading where it said from town administrator. Good point out there, bud.
It has been the practice of the Douglas Select Board in the past, when you form subcommittees for a specific task, you've given them what some people would call a charge or a recipe that you want them to follow and a description of the product you're hoping they generate.
With that being said, whenever anybody's ready to make a motion on that, we'll entertain.
So moved.
And second.
So the motion, because we didn't actually make a motion, I just said entertain one. So the motion that you're agreeing, that you're making is to accept the charge for the stakeholders committee on stormwater bylaw
As presented to the
as
board.
presented to the board. Yep. You seconding that?
I'll second
Yeah.
that.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
And Matt.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Okay, we have meeting minutes. Did everybody have a chance to review the meeting minutes? You guys all set? Yeah.
I'll make the motion to approve the August 6th, 2024 meeting minutes for the Board of Selectmen.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing as none, all in favor?
Aye.
Next thing on our agenda is a disclosure from KP Law for the multiple representation disclosure on our intermunicipal agreement, public health excellence shared services grant. Did we have a chance to peek through that? After we look through it, we're going to be looking for a motion to accept the disclosure and also authorize the signing of it.
Yeah, KP's just protecting that,
Yes. Yep.
so to speak.
KYA is called. Yeah.
CYA.
Depends on what country you're from.
True. That is true.
So we're looking
Mr.
for,
Chairman, if you like, I can explain to our very large home viewing audience what it is that the board is reading.
Absolutely. Go for it, boss.
As I'm sure Hal will back me up on, an attorney must disclose the appearance of a conflict of interest at any time when they may represent more than one party to a transaction. It is not necessarily forbidden. The different clients can agree that they don't feel that the legal representation is in any way conflicted. In this particular case, we have a grant to work with several other communities in central Massachusetts on public health issues. This is a grant program that came out of the pandemic and has been continued because it is a view of the Commonwealth that this format works very well to get good public health results. Our public health nurses are in charge of a lot of things. They keep track of communicable diseases. They intervene like they are intervening right now when we are under critical watch for things like EEE, and provide any number of services that may not be obvious to the public, but which are an important part of the data management from the State Department of Public Health. So from KP Law's perspective, they represent numerous municipalities that are part of this agreement, but they have basically come to the conclusion that they don't feel that they would in any way be conflicted, that there would be any financial interest that would be in contradiction. And thus they are asking their clients, in this case the town of Douglas uses KP Law for our labor council, to accept this disclosure and no further action, allow them to represent or continue to represent all the towns in the agreement.
Thank you.
it's hard to think of any conflict arising. Everybody seems to be going the same direction and wants the grant and continue the program. So we need to,
I'll make a motion to approve and accept the KP Law disclosure as presented
And sign it.
and sign it. Yeah.
second,
Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing as none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Administrator, your report if you so feel like.
don't incline.
So Before I go into too much detail, is the audio clear? I'm not chopping up or?
Very
No,
good.
perfect.
I just want to go back to a couple of things that the board has already transacted this evening, because I was about 5 minutes of struggle with Zoom to get my lovely mug on the screen. A heartfelt thanks to Lisa Mozinski and her entire team put together that effort to bring the Smithsonian to the town of Douglas. It's a very high honor. It is a program that has been designed for small communities, under 10,000 in population, to spread the word and actually to show off some really cool stuff that the Smithsonian has an enormous collection, as most of you know. And the Museum on Main Street program started a few years ago, and we were all told at the Small Town Administrators Association that this was coming and that it would be very competitive and difficult to achieve this. And the town of Douglas is here in the second round, and it's exciting to see. As I'm sure Lisa mentioned, I did miss her presentation, but this program will come to the town of Douglas in calendar year 2025, so about a year from now. The intervening time is going to be used to train staff and to basically promote and explain the exhibit to the community and make it part of the community's life for the 2 months that it's here. So again, many thanks to Lisa. I'm sure it was a tedious, at times, grant process, but they stuck it out, and the Historical Commission the Historical Society got some really good work done for the town. On the IT grant that you accepted tonight, that $11,000, what is that for? We're not buying stuff with that. We are always trying to use our own internal resources to test our ability to spot suspicious activity on our network, in our email exchanges, and make sure that our staff don't click on things that look very convincing. And by the way, the people that are trying to attack us are getting more and more clever every day. They're not sending these things from a prince of Nigeria anymore, because his boat is stuck and he needs an immediate transfer. Yeah. Or, some silly thing with, can you run to the store and buy me a gift card? It doesn't look like that anymore. The stuff that we get sent in an attempt to hack us or fish their way into our data is, very convincing looking invoices, websites that very closely and carefully mimic websites that we typically visit as town officials in doing our jobs. So we are going to run additional drills with this $11,000 and participate in programs that make sure that we're ready. This does two things for us. First of all, the school of thought here is free. And free is for me, right? So if they're going to give us a grant to do this, we might as well, because it's a best practice. But we can also use this in our conversation with our property and casualty insurer in order to drive a closer bargain with them over the cost of cyber insurance, which has become two things: much more expensive than it was in the past, and much harder to keep. Those municipalities that are not watching the fences, so to speak, with regard to cybersecurity, are going to find themselves very difficult to insure because they're not proving to the potential funder of any loss that they are taking all the preventive steps necessary. So this was a grant application. It was only one page, but IT threw it together on short notice and wrote a very compelling narrative, and we got it. So some project updates. I think most of you may have driven by the municipal center and noticed the crane overhead. The roof work is ongoing. I don't know if they were on site today or if the weather overnight kept them from being able to do anything. I think I saw some pictures this morning which indicated that they were up there. And I think we're looking at another week and a half or 2 weeks, weather permitting, before a lot of that work is sewn up. The good news on the opera front is that we have gone out to contract. We have fully executed a contract today with the closed circuit television security provider of cameras at the schools. The school committee has laid out a work program, and the contractor has agreed to it. And we will be back at town meeting in the fall. This is a preview to our fall conversation. The project came in much higher than we had anticipated, and I've explained this before. The designer that we had went on a very, very cheap design, and we found after investigating the options that we have in front of us and what we really need the system to do, that we needed to spend more. And so the ARPA funds will still be almost half of this project, but we will be looking for a supplement at fall town meeting. The work will go on during the school year, and this particular installer has a lot of experience working around the bell schedule of our schools, and a long track record of successfully doing that. But I think when we look at the system we had, I think we have come to the conclusion that we'd rather not talk about in a public open session, that it was time, definitely time, to update the security arrangement at a couple of our school buildings right away. So that's what we're going to be doing, and you'll see parents will probably notice some of these trucks around campus during the day. We are also coming very close to bidding out the HVAC and electrical upgrades at the fire station. There's a lot of work that's been done by the engineer and design architect, mostly the engineers. The space has been fully programmed. They went through and interviewed the fire chief and deputy chief to determine what was needed in all of the individual rooms, and so everything's coming down to the last couple of days of work before the bid goes up. And I'm happy about that, because one of the things at the lightning strike, when the building got hit by lightning and a lot of our systems got knocked out, a couple of appliances got fried, we really came to the determination that the building wasn't fully modernized. It was built for what it was built for, and it was built correctly, but with all of the things that we use nowadays that charge, batteries, and all of our appliances need receptacles on dedicated circuits, and a lot of voltage control. Is not a lot of room for voltage spikes. We just needed to clean up the power and bring in a lot more power than we were bringing in under our existing service. The other thing that's going to come out of this is a new generator. We've been limping along with the generator and really basically the lack of a properly installed transfer switch at this building. This is a public safety building that's open 24/7. So we will have a generator that's out there that will be fired with diesel, but we are going to work this out so that we're actually fueling our vehicles from the tank, so we're not leaving fuel sitting in the tank to go stale. We'll be constantly circulating that fuel, and we'll also be able to take advantage of some of the volume price discounts that we can get on fuel once we reach a certain amount of gallon usage. So that's where we are with a lot of our major projects. We are still anxious to see the water commissioners come forward with their plan for Depot Street. My understanding is that they've made some progress. We are bringing to a conclusion the project on Northeast Main and Gilboa, and that's taking a lot of the systems manager's time, because there are details, as you can imagine, at the end of a large project. There's a punch list of things that have to be taken care of. You know, unfortunately, we had two contracts, right? So we had one contractor who knocked it out of the park and did a fantastic job, came in well under budget, and we had the apparent low bidder on the second time. There's a little bit more work working with them. They weren't quite as crisp and clean in their delivery of the project. Now, when all is said and done, the condition of the roads and the performance of the water and wastewater systems have definitely improved markedly as a result of the project. So we're not going to complain too much about it, but there are things that they need to button up and finish. We've spent quite a bit of time in the last week and a half working on this promotional video that is going to celebrate the success of the town of Douglas at the National Conference of My Profession in Pittsburgh in September. The film crew will be in town on August 26th, which is Monday, for 9 hours, and they will do a one-day shoot and try to get it all done. I've made a concerted effort here to try to get as many Douglas residents their cameo in this video, because really the video is about the town, and the town has stepped up to address its own future with the steps that town meeting has taken, and those of us who work for the town are simply grateful for the opportunity to serve you to the best of our ability. Having said that, we have a story to tell. We've won a lot of grants, we've done a lot of big projects, and the projects that are on the horizon, which are not theoretical at all, they are very firmly marching forward through the state. The state permitting process is already complete for the next step at Pine Sand and Gravel. The goal here has always been to stabilize the revenue forecast for the town of Douglas so that you could continue to enjoy the best services that we feel that we can staff at a modest budget that will not dramatically go up and down over the years, but will be steady Eddie, but with most of the new revenue coming from business development, not from residential taxpayers. So that's begun already. This year we'll be certifying new growth as a result of the CRG warehouse that's completely within the boundaries of the town of Douglas. The project that we're looking to see come in the future would be 70% Douglas, about 30% Sutton. And both communities will benefit considerably from the anticipated investment in that step. And, as always, our story, right, is we're trying to balance a rural quality of life, and the reason why people have invested in Douglas is to have their privacy, to be able to live a self-reliant and rugged lifestyle, which is typical for the Blackstone Valley. I didn't grow up in Douglas, but I grew up in the valley. We heated our house with wood. We grew our own food in our own garden. These values are part of country life, and we didn't want to upset that with development. Development is occurring, therefore, almost entirely within a couple thousand feet of Route 146. And that's already a loud, busy part of town, and we're trying to leave the quiet part of town quiet. And maintaining that balance is a challenge at times, because the development community wants to do certain things, but we want to focus them on the kind of development that is going to have the least impact on the community in terms of quality of life, but the highest level of impact financially. So that's the story we're going to be telling with this video. It's only 5 to 6 minutes long. We're trying to do a lot in a very little amount of time, but we should have a director's cut, so to speak, to show people about a week before the conference. So I'm anxious to share that when it's time. I think it's coming along very nicely. As far as the actual activity that goes on, I'm very grateful to the Conservation Commission, Mr. Chairman, because this week they plowed through their entire agenda and resolved all of the issues on their agenda. And you, as the appointing authority, should know that everybody rolled up their sleeves and really dug into this and made a tremendous amount of progress. This is an unprecedented workload on both the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission, and to some extent even the Zoning Board, with all of the development going on in town, not just the economic development, but the environment is very conducive. Notwithstanding interest rates, it's still conducive for residential development, and you're seeing quite a lot of that around town, so there's a lot of work being done by committees to protect the town and enforce your bylaws. So I just wanted to bring that up because I think volunteers can toil deep into the night and this thankless task of reading plans and asking engineers really detailed questions, but they're getting the work done, and everybody's coming away from the process feeling like they got a fair hearing. So I'm going to leave it at that. That's, I've been talking for a long time, so I'm not sitting next to Les, he can't hand me a mint at this point. But I think you got a pretty good sense of what we've been doing over the last 2 weeks.
Thank you. One thing I want to add to that, I don't know if people have taken notice to it, but when the Highway Department stepped it up to help you prepare for this filming. They've done a lot of cleanup on all the curbing and everything throughout the town. They give us the best possible image, which was a nice effort on their part.
In the paintings, they painted a lot of the crosswalks and
Yep.
stuff like that recently.
Yep, it looks nice
That's
and
been a
fresh.
big
Yeah.
effort there.
Yep.
I think also just to add what Matt was highlighting regarding the boards and the committees, I know the COMCOM committee meeting was on the 19th and they went for 4.5 hours. So, it's, and I think they're almost close to 100 hours this year and meeting times and stuff like that. So they really did a great job last night.
Yep.
Yep,
This week to clean up their agenda.
good deal.
So all you can do now is hope for clear weather on the 26th. Okay, does anybody have anything on, that's not reasonably anticipated 48 hours in advance?
The only thing is I happen to be driving through a couple of towns that are trying to publicize the September elections, and they have these movable signs that announce the election day and key positions in the town. Maybe that's something we can investigate to try to get the turnout at any of our elections up a bit. Obviously, everything's on the web pages and this and that, but that physically somebody might register.
Yeah, it's actually a good time to bring that up, Hal, because it's always been a sticking point that everybody's like, when's the election, when's the
Yeah.
election?
Well, the
And
primary.
it kind of gets
Yeah.
overlooked a lot of
Yeah.
times, even with our little local elections.
So
right?
4 or
So-
5 locations to have some sort of signage we could develop.
Yeah, usually the fire department, you know what I mean, usually would post and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
that's always worthwhile. But yeah, sometimes
Yeah,
you know,
sense.
yeah, other spots would be great to post when the primary is and
Mr. Administrator, if the electronic board isn't being used at that time, could that be something that could be implemented?
So I assume you're talking about the September election.
Yeah.
Yeah, elections in general, actually, but then the next one is September. Yeah.
Yeah, so you have a party primary coming up in September, which I don't know is that much of an event for us in town. And then you have the early November general federal election.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're certainly going to do everything we can to support the idea of turnout and making sure everybody who has the right to vote exercises that right. And I don't have, I think in the past, there has been some notice given on some of our boards, well, we can step it up. Just as a quick reminder, we'll be using our message boards quite a bit. We're going to be repaving a section of Northwest Maine. We're going to be repaving public parking lots behind the post office near the senior center. Then we have Oktoberfest coming up, and we put those signs out. Now, they won't interfere with any elections, but the signs will be programmed to be used extensively to remind truckers that there will be an Oktoberfest and it's a bad day to traffic through town. And so, yeah, we're running back and forth. We program them all.
Yeah.
And there's, been some discussion, there's always discussion about how to get more public notice out.
Well, maybe,
The fire station sign is only, I think we've run out of letters on that.
no, but some order of process here, because like on the debt exclusion, we had 251 people out of, 9,300 that came out. And it could have been because it wasn't put out there enough. Maybe if we create a policy that it gets put up, these elections get put up, at least on the fire station board, it seems like whose responsibility is it? So I guess we have to figure out whose that is.
It's a
and
simple
get it
easel
going.
sign that I see around in these different towns too.
Yeah.
Standalone town
Right.
signs.
Yeah, but
Pick
who's
3 or 4.
responsible for putting it out is what my point was.
Well,
yeah,
Public
yeah.
Works maybe.
Yeah.
Put 'em up.
Something you could look into, Mr. Administrator?
Good idea.
They give us
Certainly
some,
can.
they give us some suggestions as to how to approach that?
Sure.
Okay, with that, need a motion to enter an executive session for interest in real property and potential litigation. Interest in real property will be for Rydell Road. Litigation would be contract closeout costs for Northeast Main Street, Gilboa.
So moved.
I'll make the motion.
Wait a minute, yeah.
I'll make the
So,
motion to
yeah,
enter
yeah,
into
okay,
executive session.
He's going to do
All right,
the lead-in.
all right.
I'll make the motion to enter executive session for the purpose of interest in real property on Rydell Road, also potential litigation, contract closeout costs for Northeast Main Street, Gilboa Street, then reconvene into open session for the sole purpose of adjournment.
Excellent job.
I'll second that.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We need a roll call for that, Lisa? We're going into executive session? Don't we do that? Yes. Yeah, I remembered. She forgot. Okay, good.
Les Stevens, aye.
Smith, aye.
Davis, aye.
Fitzpatrick, aye.